Desmond was a man of power, influence, and wealth. In the city, his name commanded fear and respect. But behind his success lay a dark secret. He was a ruthless womanizer. From a young age, Desmond had never respected women. To him, they were objects of pleasure, nothing more. He used them and discarded them without remorse. His victims ranged from young schoolgirls to married women, and even his employees. His latest victim was Ada, a young, innocent girl who worked as a housemaid in his luxurious mansion. She had come from a poor background, seeking a better life. But she had no idea that she was living under the roof of a monster. One fateful night, Desmond crept into Ada's small, windowless room. She woke up in fear as his shadow loomed over her. Before she could even scream, his rough hands were over her mouth. "No one will believe you," he whispered, his hot breath against her ear. She struggled, fought, begged, but Desmond was stronger. The pain was unbearable, the horror unspeakable. When it was over, he simply got up, adjusted his shirt, and walked out, as if nothing had happened. For days, Ada lived in silence. She wanted to run, to tell someone. But who would believe a mere housemaid over a wealthy man? Weeks passed, and Ada started noticing changes in her body. She began feeling weak and nauseous. Her worst fear was confirmed. She was pregnant. She gathered courage and went to tell Desmond, hoping he would at least take responsibility. "Sir, I carry your child," she whispered, her hands trembling. Desmond turned, his eyes dark with fury. "You what?" he roared. Before she could speak again, his hand struck her across the face. "You will never speak of this again," he growled, "or you will regret it." But Desmond was not done. He didn't just want her silent, he wanted her gone. That night, he made a call to his trusted men. "Take care of her," he said coldly. And with that, Ada's fate was sealed. Ada lay in bed, restless. Her gut told her something was wrong. The mansion was eerily quiet. The only sound was the occasional rustling of the trees outside, as the wind howled through the night. Then she heard it, footsteps. Her door swung open, and before she could react, strong hands grabbed her. A rag was forced over her mouth, muffling her screams. She fought, kicked, scratched, but there were too many of them. One of the men chuckled. "Boss says you talk too much." She was dragged out of the house, her heart pounding. Where were they taking her? A car was waiting outside. They threw her into the back seat and sped off into the night. Fear gripped her. Her body shook violently. "Please, please, don't kill me," she whispered. They didn't respond. For what felt like hours, they drove into the darkness of an unknown place. Finally, the car came to a stop. The men stepped out, dragged her into the thick forest, and threw her to the ground. "This is where you die, girl." Her heart stopped. She begged, cried, pleaded for mercy. But they did not listen. The men turned and walked away, leaving her alone in the middle of nowhere. The car engine roared back to life, and just like that, they were gone. Ada was alone, pregnant, left to die. The night was freezing. Ada hugged her belly, trying to keep herself warm. Darkness surrounded her, and the eerie sounds of the forest sent chills down her spine. Suddenly, she heard movement. Something or someone was watching her. Her body stiffened. Was it an animal? Then she saw it, a dim light in the distance. Weak and exhausted, she stumbled toward it, her legs barely holding her weight. The light belonged to a small hut, and outside stood an old woman carrying a lantern. She gasped when she saw the frail, shivering girl before her. "My child, what happened to you?" the woman asked, concern in her voice. Ada collapsed at her feet. She could fight no more. The old woman, Mama Nkechi, took Ada into her home, fed her, and nursed her back to health. Weeks turned into months. Under Mama Nkechi's care, Ada began to heal. And then, one night, in the safety of her new home, she gave birth to a baby girl. A miracle child. Her name was Amaka. Mama Nkechi raised Amaka as her own grandchild. She ensured she got an education, had everything she needed, and most importantly, grew up in love. Ada, though still haunted by the past, found hope in her daughter. "You will not suffer as I did," she swore. And Amaka did not. She excelled in her studies, grew into a beautiful and intelligent young woman, and became the pride of her small village. Then, one day, she got an admission letter. She had been accepted into one of the most prestigious universities in the country. Excitement filled the house, but Ada felt uneasy. Something deep inside her warned her that sending Amaka away would change everything. She wanted to stop her. But how could she? Amaka had big dreams. And so, despite her fears, she let her go. She had no idea she was sending her daughter straight into the hands of her unknown father. Amaka stood outside her small village home, gripping the acceptance letter to Prestige University in her hands. The golden seal on the envelope gleamed under the sunlight, a symbol of her future far from home. "Mama, I have to go," she said, her voice filled with excitement and determination. Ada, her mother, stood in the doorway, her eyes clouded with worry. She had prayed for this moment, for Amaka to have a better life. But something in her heart didn't feel right. "My daughter, I am happy for you. But something about this makes me uneasy," Ada admitted. Amaka, oblivious to the deeper fears haunting her mother, hugged her tightly. "Don't worry, Mama. I will be fine," she promised. Ada forced a smile and nodded, holding back her tears. How could she explain the unexplainable? The deep, unsettling fear that fate was leading her daughter into something dark and unknown. As Amaka left that morning, with her bags packed and her future ahead of her, Ada stood watching until her daughter was just a speck on the dusty road. And then, under her breath, she whispered, "May the gods protect you." She had no idea what fate had in store. Professor Desmond sat in his large, leather office chair, flipping through files of new students. It was a tradition for him every new session. He would scan through the list of freshers, searching for his next prey. He loved young, innocent girls. They were easier to control, easier to manipulate. As he browsed, one name caught his eye, Amaka Nyoku. Something about the name felt strange, familiar. Then, later that day, he saw her. She had walked into his lecture hall, her beauty so striking that for the first time in years, Desmond felt his heart race. The moment their eyes met, a strange feeling washed over him. Desmond had pursued many women in his life, but this was different. Something deep inside him told him he needed her, and Desmond always got what he wanted. Desmond wasted no time. The moment Amaka submitted her first assignment, he left a note inside her paper. "Come to my office after class." Her heart pounded when she saw it. She had heard stories about Professor Desmond, how he preyed on young girls, offering them grades in exchange for their innocence. When she knocked on his office door, he smiled and gestured for her to sit. "You're a brilliant student, Amaka," he said smoothly. "I have an eye for talent." She shifted uncomfortably under his gaze. "Thank you, sir." "Call me Desmond," he corrected, his voice softer now. That was how it started. Small gestures, soft words, a constant presence in her life. She told herself she was imagining things, but deep down she knew he was hunting her, and she was his prey. One evening after class, Desmond called her to his office again. This time there was no pretense. "I want to marry you, Amaka," he said, his voice thick with emotion. She froze. "Sir." "Desmond," he corrected, "and I'm serious. I've never met anyone like you." At first, she was afraid. But then she thought of her mother's suffering, how she had struggled all her life. A wealthy, powerful man wanted her. This could change everything. But something inside her whispered, no. Taking a deep breath, she said, "If you truly love me, wait until my final exams." Desmond had never waited for any woman, but for Amaka, he agreed. Desmond was impatient. He couldn't wait to make Amaka his wife, so he made arrangements for his relatives in another country to pay her bride price. Everything was done over the phone. When Amaka told her mother, Ada was shocked. "Marriage is not this simple. We don't even know this man." But Amaka pressured her. "Mama, I love him." Ada finally relented, unaware she was giving her daughter away to the very man who ruined her life. Mama Nkechi's dreams had been dark lately. Something felt wrong about this marriage. One night, she turned to Ada and said, "Before she marries him, we must search for her father." Ada hesitated. Could it be? Could her daughter be walking into the greatest mistake of her life? The wedding date was set. Desmond was ecstatic. He had never waited for a woman before, but Amaka was special. Meanwhile, Ada and Mama Nkechi prepared to meet the groom. They had no idea what they were about to uncover. The moment Ada saw him, she froze. Her breath caught in her throat. Mama Nkechi gasped. Desmond turned, smiling. Then his smile faded. "You," Ada whispered in horror. The room fell silent. And then she spoke the words that shattered the world. "Desmond, meet your daughter, Amaka." Desmond's body went cold. No, this is not possible. His chest tightened. His legs buckled. Before anyone could react, Desmond collapsed. "Dead," Amaka screamed. She felt her world crashing. Her father, her lover. She couldn't breathe. Her body went limp. She was rushed inside the house. In the panic, she was given the wrong medication. Within hours, she miscarried. Her father was gone. Her child was gone. Her world was ruined. Amaka woke up to silence. She was empty. Everything she thought was love was a lie. She wept until she had no tears left. Desmond had spent his life destroying women. In the end, his own destruction came from a woman, and the sins of the past always find their way home. Moral of the story: no one escapes fate. No matter how powerful a man is, his past will always find him.